Okay, so I'm gonna split these videos up into a few parts. I'm gonna start with completing the square so you guys can figure out, you can watch a video on whatever you need the most help with. So I'm gonna start with completing the square. Hopefully, I don't know, we'll see if this makes my handwriting any neater. So all of these, you're gonna do the same thing. So first thing you do is you isolate your term. So p squared minus 18p is equal to 19. Then you take your b term, which is negative 18, divide by 2 and square it. So that's going to be 18 divided by 2 is 9, 9 squared is 81. So make sure you add 81 to each side. So I have p squared minus 18p plus 81 is equal to 100. I am going to factor this. I made it factorable, so you don't have to worry about a box method or anything like that. I know that this factors to be p minus 9 squared is equal to 100. I take the square root of each side. Make sure that you do plus or minus the square root of 100, so p minus 9 is equal to plus or minus 10. When I add, my answer is going to be 9 plus or minus 10. Now, when you have whole numbers like this, you are going to split this. P is either equal to 9 minus 10, which is negative 1, or P is equal to 9 plus 10, which is 19. So your answer here is going to be positive 1 and 19. So let's go and do the next one. First thing, of course, I'm going to add 84. And so I end up with b squared minus, minus 5b is equal to 88. You take your middle term, divide by 2, and square it. So that's going to be 25 over 4. I know I'm going to add 25 over 4 to this side, and I also have to add 25 over 4 to this side. Now we have a little bit of an issue. I don't have a common denominator. Remember, this is 8 over 1, and so I need to make these denominators, so I multiply this by 4 over 4. 88 times 4, well, that's going to be 4 times 80 plus 8. 4 times 80 is 320, and 4 times 8 is 32. So that's going to be 352 over 4. So this ends up being b squared minus 5b plus 25 over 4 is equal to 377 over 4. I know that this is factorable to b minus, and then 25 over 4, I take the square root of that, just like I did with the previous problem. So negative 5/2 squared, because that's what it factors to. We made it that way, all those procedures. I then take the square root. I take the square root, I take the square root, make sure it's plus and minus. So I have b minus 5/2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 377. Keep that plus and minus up in the numerator over 2. I then add 5/2 to each side. b is equal to 5 plus or minus radical 377 over 2, and I can add these like normal because they have a common denominator. Okay, so again, I just add the numerators. There's my 5/2, there's my 377 over 2. So that's my final answer. You do have two solutions. Just remember that that is 5 minus radical 377 over 2 and 5 plus radical 377 over 2. Okay, but this is fine right here. Next one, so we're getting a little bit more complicated. I add 16x to each side. So I have 8x squared plus 16x is equal to 42. Next thing is you divide every term by a. So this ends up being x squared plus 2x is equal to 21 over 4. From here, take your b term, divide by 2, and square it. So that's going to be 1. So I'm going to add 1 to each side. Now, same thing, I need a common denominator, so I'm going to multiply this by 4 over 4. Remember, this is 4 over 1, so this is 4 over 4. So I end up with x squared plus 2x plus 1 is equal to 25 over 4. I then factor this. This is x plus 1 squared. Remember, you take the square root of this, is equal to 25 over 4. I take the square root of each part. I end up with x minus 1, or x plus 1, excuse me, is equal to plus or minus 5/4. I subtract 1. I subtract 1. I have x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus 5/4. Now, when I have rational numbers like this, no radicals, I am going to have to actually go through and solve it. So x is equal to negative 1 minus 5/4. Well, I know that that's going to be 4 over 4. So this is going to be negative 4 over 4 minus 5 over 4 is equal to negative 9 over 4. And then x is also equal to negative 1 plus 5/4, which I know is negative 4 over 4 plus 5 over 4. Oh, geez Louise, what did I do? Please forgive me, guys. I knew I was going to do something dumb. This is not 4. This is not 4. Sorry, and there's no way for me to go back and edit. So you guys are going to have to deal with my mistake. Plus or minus 5. The square root of 4 is not 4. The square root of 4 is 2. So this is going to be x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus 5/2. X is equal to negative 1 minus 5/2, which is negative 2 over 2 minus 5/2, which is negative 7 over 2. And negative 1 plus 5/2 is equal to negative 2 over 2 plus 5 over 2, which is equal to 3 over 2. And so your two answers are negative 7/2 and 3/2. And I apologize for the little snafu. Okay. Go with that burnt orange. Okay. So in this case, we get all of our, so I'm going to subtract 8n squared. I'm going to, so that's going to be 7n squared minus 8 is equal to negative 10 plus 16n. I know the 16n has to move over here. And I also know that the 8 has to move over here. So this ends up being 7n squared minus 16n is equal to negative 2. Divide by 7, divide by 7, divide by 7. N squared minus 16/7, not a delightful fraction, is equal to negative 2/7. I take my b term. When I have a fraction, instead of dividing by 2, I'm going to multiply by half and square it. This ends up being 16/14 squared, which is going to be 8/7. Simplify before. So to each side, I'm going to add 64 over 49. So I add 64 over 49 here. I add 64 over 49 here. Now I need to get a common denominator, so I multiply this by 7 over 7, and I have negative 14 over 49 plus 64 over 49. So I end up with n squared minus 16/7 n plus 64 over 49 is equal to 50 over 49. I factor this. This is going to be n minus the square root of 64 is 8. The square root of 49 is 7. Squared is equal to 50 over 49. N minus 8/7 is equal to plus or minus radical 50 over 7. n is equal to 8 plus or minus radical 50 over 7. Now 50, and it doesn't matter how you do it. I know that's going to be 2 times 25, which is 5 times 5. So I know that this is actually going to be 8 plus or minus 5 radical 2 over 7. And this is your final answer. So that's completing the square. Hopefully that was helpful.